Hello, I'm Daniel Stewart with 1495 Sports. We're here live at Citi Field where Dellin Betances was just welcomed to the New York Mets. Stay tuned.
Dellin Betances. He's one of the most accomplished and dominant relief pitchers in Major League Baseball. As you'll see here in a couple of minutes, he's an imposing figure. He's got size, he's got strength, and he's got swagger when he takes them out. His power stuff can overmatch and overpower, and ultimately he can intimidate his opposing hitters. In short, he's everything we want. Everything we want here at the New York Mets. I want to take a couple minutes here to talk about our signing process. In part because I think it demonstrates and illustrates that three things can be a good recipe for success: persistence, collaboration, and creativity. When those three things are combined with a group of motivated people, good things can happen. This process started way back in November. Jim Murray, Michael Stovall, two of Dellin Betances' agents, were out in Arizona. They met with us. What was clear there is that we were interested in Dellin, but that Dellin had many interested teams. Jim expressed at that point in time that this process was not going to be a fast one. They were going to evaluate the market, they were going to provide all the information to Dellin, and ultimately Dellin would make a decision after he narrowed the focus on teams. Since they weren't in a rush, we needed to go through the rest of our off-season priorities. We focused our attention on starting pitching. When we got to the winter meetings, we focused, as you all know now, on Michael Wacha and Rick Porcello. We felt that both of those pitchers added depth to our starting rotation and ceiling of accomplished elite caliber players. We again met with Jim Murray and Stovall at the winter meetings, ironically, because they also represented Rick Porcello. But throughout those negotiations with Rick, even at that point in time, we remained skeptical that we would ultimately be standing here today. Dellin had so many options and uncertain, and the free agency market is so uncertain that it's always hard to know who's going to be the last team standing. So we packed our bags, we moved back to Citi Field here, and the leadership group in the baseball operations department bunkered in, huddled down, and ultimately talked about where we would go from here the rest of the offseason. As we went through the considerations, one name kept popping up: Dellin, Dellin, Dellin. So we knew coming out of that meeting that we had to make one final pitch. We had to make one final pursuit to see if we could somehow be the winning bid within the Dellin sweepstakes. What that did was it launched a 4-day period of time of an intense process. Carlos Beltran, Jeremy Hefner, our new pitching coach, Robinson Cano, Jeff Wilpon, our COO, and even Jared Faust, one of our R&D analysts, all made calls and presentations to Dellin and to the Jim Murray team to try to ultimately make a pitch on why we were the right team and why this was the best opportunity for Dellin going forward. Simultaneously, Jeff, David Cohen, our EVP and in-house general counsel, and I bunkered down and had a lockdown 72-hour session of brainstorming ideas, effectively trying to come up with one way to walk out of this situation with Dellin. Deal structures were complicated, but ultimately we needed to find a way that met all parties' interests. That's a normal process for us inside the Mets organization. David, Jeff, and I are always sitting down, reviewing proposals, and ultimately presenting them. But this went above and beyond the call of duty, given the unique deal structure that we laid out. Ultimately, Jim and Michael Stovall invited us to their offices in Midtown to meet with Dellin. It was an opportunity for us to sit face to face. At that meeting, we continued to reiterate our sincere interest, but it was really a two-way conversation. And the highlights of that conversation were three things. We listened to Dellin, and he communicated the following. He wanted to be fairly compensated. Naturally, he wanted to be fairly compensated. He wanted to dominate, and he wanted to win. Most players want to be treated fairly from a financial standpoint. Dominate was an interesting word because he didn't want to just reestablish his health. He didn't want to just go out and perform his normal job. He wanted to dominate. He expressed that very clearly. And lastly, he wanted to apply that dominance to a winning culture and a winning environment. We were fortunate to be able to sell him on our winning environment to the point where after our meeting, Jim, Stivall, Dellin all left the room. They left me sequestered in a conference room for about 45 minutes all by myself. When Jim and Stivall came back, they gave a very clear expression. Dellin wanted to be with the New York Mets. And at that point, it was our task, the team of negotiators at that point in time, to figure a way out. The only failure at this point was if we couldn't make a deal. And that's what we did. 7 hours, probably half a dozen breakout sessions later, FaceTime calls, different deal structures. Ultimately, we had a handshake, and on Christmas Eve, Dellin became a member of the New York Mets. I've talked many times this offseason and in the past that our goal is to increase the floor of our projected win total. This signing's different. This signing was intended to blow the cover off of our ceiling. We believe that a healthy and dominant Dellin, combined with Edwin Diaz and Seth Lugo and Justin Wilson, Jerry's Familia, Brad Brock, Robert Gesellman, this collective group has the potential to be one of the best bullpens in baseball. And we're excited to get them all together down in Florida here in almost a month from now. At the end of the day, everybody should remember, Dellin is New York born. Dellin is New York made. And today, Dellin's a member of the New York Mets.
Brings a lot of excitement. Obviously, I want to wish everybody here Happy New Year's and thank you for coming. I hope I didn't cut you guys' vacation a little short. This past week and a half has brought a lot of excitement to myself and my family. Christmas, in fact, came a little bit early as we celebrated our signing with the New York Mets. Definitely a lot of things that I'm excited about. I've heard a lot of great things about the organization from Brody, a lot of the staff that I've spoke to. I'm excited to meet a bunch of the staff members of the Mets, a lot of the players as well. I've spoke to over the phone, Robertson Canal, Familia, a lot of the guys I know that I play with, Justin Wilson, told me a lot of great things, and Stroman I got the chance to speak to, so I'm definitely excited. I feel like I'm already at home. I know a bunch of the players, so I think that transition will be easy for me. And I'm just excited to start expand my career here in New York with the Mets. I have a bunch of people I want to thank, and I want to thank my family, big group that came to support me today. Love all you guys. I want to thank my wife for always being there for me, supporting me, and obviously bringing our biggest joy, Dellin J, to our lives. I want to thank Mr. Fred Wilpon, Jeff, and the rest of the Wilpon family for welcoming me to you guys as family. This is truly an honor for me, and I'm going to represent this team as best as I can with high class. And I'm going to give you guys a smile, I believe that. I want to thank Jim, Steve, Juliet, the rest of the Excel family, Jim, Steve, and Brody for spending all that time and trying to find a way. Also, David Cohen to make this deal come true. I know there was a lot of different things that they had to go through to make everything right, and I thank you guys for that day, the 23rd. I remember I was in the office for a while, and going back and forth. we were negotiating. Brody presenting his presentation and how excited he is about the Mets. And then we kind of threw our pitch. I went home, practiced, came back, and we got the deal done. So I'm definitely excited. I think there's this 2020 team is something that a lot of these fans need to be excited about. Obviously, just from watching them from across the way, I think they have one of the better records in the second half. And, I'm just honored and, to be a part of this 2020 season. I think there's a lot of excitement and buzz, and I can't wait to meet a bunch of the guys to, start this new journey. And, my goal is to win, and I'm going to do the best I can to win. As I've said in my social media posts, New York is in my blood, I grew up playing in the Lower East Side. I went to high school in Brooklyn. In '07, I played minor league ball in Staten Island. In 2011, I made my major league debut in the Bronx, and now I stand here, getting the chance to wear this Mets uniform, playing in Queens. Well, for me, my job is pass the baton to the next guy, make sure that at the end of the game we're slapping hands and we're enjoying the win. I try to do the best I can at that job, and I can't wait.
How hard is it filling in there? Which was?
There were a lot of teams. I can't, there are a lot of teams involved. I can't really say who is not fit to those teams. But there are a lot of teams involved. And, ultimately, we're excited to stay here in New York.
You were sporting a beard now. You always had to be clean shaven with the Yankees. Is this just a winter thing, or
well,
keeping the season?
The off season, I usually keep my beard, but I think I'm gonna keep it going. See how much I can grow. I don't think it grows more than this. We'll see what happens.
What are some of the keys for your focus as a pitcher when you're out there on the mound? What are some of the keys for your mental focus?
For me, I like to have a plan when I'm out there. I kind of want to know what's the hitter's weakness, how I want to attack them, and how I want to, maybe finish them to strike out a lot of guys. And hopefully, I continue to do that. But I just like to be as prepared as I can when I'm out there.
Did you keep in touch with Robinson Cano since he left the Yankees?
I did. I speak to Robinson Cano often, and he was one of the guys that gave me the pitch on how good they treat their players here, and how excited he is with the team they have. And he spoke very highly about Brody, so he was one of the guys that helped me make this decision.
When did he kind of start selling you on the Mets?
We spoke here and there in the off season. He felt like coming here, I contribute in a good way. And, he FaceTimed me before I met with Brody and after, so I speak to him a lot.
Was Philly a tempting option for you too? And did Girardi and Didi campaign at all together?
I spoke to Didi. I congratulated him on his deal. Like I said, I can't really talk on fairness to those teams. There are a lot of teams involved. I can't really talk.
And now you get to strike him out when he's here with Philadelphia.
Didi's a clutch hitter. We'll see what happens. I'll try to do the best I can.
Thank you. How old is baby?
10 months.
Okay.
Thank you, guys. It's like those negotiations for Dellin were quite complicated, not simple in any regard.
They weren't. When you have a player coming off of a year where he only faced 2 batters, there's an element where we have to try to find a way to give him the financial security he's looking for, while also protecting his downside, but also giving him the upside. And for us, I think the same applies. We wanted to make sure we had some downside protection while also giving everybody the opportunity to have be successful.
Will he technically be a rehab player in spring training?
No, I mean, I think from our standpoint, we expect him to be fully on track to start spring training.
Was he on your radar all year, knowing he's going to be a free agent? And then when he had this second injury, did he go off for a while?
It's hard to look forward during the season to a potential free agent market because you never know who actually is going to get to free agency. So, no, we weren't necessarily looking for him or even identifying clearly what our investments were going to be in the bullpen because we needed the year to play itself out.
Were Cano and Carlos kind of involved in selling the Mets to him pretty much from the onset of the process?
I think Carlos had a relationship with Dellin, and the fact that both were here in New York presented opportunities for them to be in communication. Cano got involved closer to the end, and Carlos again had a conversation late in the process. But Carlos more regularly, and then Robbie more actively.
You added a high character guy and manager in Beltran, and now Dellin's also a high character guy. Did that influence you at all, knowing what he can bring from his leadership and the quality guy he is?
We have guys that are battle tested now, and Dellin being a New York player that's been on the big stage, that has competed in playoff games. Carlos having won a World Series and having been in playoff games throughout the course of his career is something that's attractive when you're trying to build a championship.
Brody, were the injuries a factor in the way that the contract is not specifically a 2 or 3 year deal and really just a 1 year deal plus?
The path to the contract and the path for Dellin into free agency definitely led to more creativity when we were deal making.
So was Dellin's role part of the discussion during negotiations? I mean, this is a guy who has closer experience, and with Diaz's struggles, did that come up at all? Or?
It's less about Diaz's struggles. I think we have every confidence that Diaz is going to be an elite closer or elite bullpen arm for us this year, the same way we do with Seth Lugo, and the same bounce back we expect from Jerry's Familia. But the fact that Dellin has pitched in high leverage situations throughout his whole career was a compelling part, and we expect him to be doing the same for us.
What gives you that confidence? What gives you that confidence that he has that he will be able to bounce back?
First and foremost, he's healthy. Secondly, even in his difficult time last year, he still struck out 99 batters over the course of the year. And then we know the work that he's putting into his training from a nutrition standpoint, strength and conditioning, as well as nuts and bolts mechanics. I think we once we hired Jeremy Hefner, Jeremy got to Puerto Rico, sat down with Edwin, and we've got a good communication already set up.
With the fans here going back and forth, the Yankee fans, Met fans, is it exciting at all to kind of take one of the Yankees' best players and put him on your team for the rivalry's sake of it?
No, that's not a factor. We focus on trying to get the best players on our team as possible.
Brody, are you done, or do you have any other things in the works that might be coming up?
Good teams can never be done. We have to make sure we're always finding ways and looking for ways to improve our roster. We feel very good about what we have right now. We have every bit of confidence that if this is the team that we open camp with, that we'll have an opportunity to compete. But we also have to keep our eyes and ears open as we go forward to see if there's additional ways to improve.
Have you spoken with Seth Lugo? Because now you have enough bodies in the bullpen. He's made it clear he wants to start, and I just want to make sure you don't have a demoralized player on your...
Well, players always want to strive to be the best they can be. Seth is no different. He's always expressed that he has the mentality of a starter even when he pitches in the bullpen. He utilizes all of his pitches, and we work in communication with his camp throughout the offseason to make sure that his throwing program is in place to be prepared to be a starter. And if the rotation is healthy and if all the pieces are in place, then he has the availability to be a back end performer.
You were saying that this was one of the more creative processes in terms of recruiting. Are you hoping to apply this to other future free agents for the Mets? Or?
Well, the creativity was more in the deal making and the contract structure. We will always be aggressive in communicating to agents and players that we have interest in, but the creativity was more in the actual deal structure.
Gotcha.
How vital is the Cespedes for negotiation and getting this done, and does that give you more leeway moving forward?
Well, when we went into the offseason with uncertainty about Cess, the uncertainty first and foremost was about his health. We're encouraged by the fact that he is well on his way to his rehab process. We're encouraged that he's going to be able to come back in 2020 with motivation and purpose and health to be able to contribute. But our off-season goals were very clear even before the resolution of Cespedes' contract. We wanted to be able to upgrade this bullpen. We wanted to be able to create starting pitching depth and upside, and we feel very good about the three pieces that we did recently, and then the Brad Brock signing earlier in the offseason, and obviously the Jackson trade. All five of those are the pieces that we feel very good about.
Birdie. It's fair to say it gives you more flexibility because you've committed less than it, right?
Well, I mean, we'll see how we allocate our dollars. At this point, we wanted to address the specific needs that we had, and we focused, as I mentioned earlier, specifically on Dellin all the way back to November. So the specifics of Cespedes' resolution didn't really necessarily drive this decision. It was more the desire to get this player.
Brody, Robinson seems to play a big role in recruiting Dellin. When you brought him here, was that something you may have envisioned that he could be that kind of leader?
not only in the clubhouse, but when you're trying to recruit new free agents?
Well, I know what kind of person Robinson is. I know the teammate that he is. He's a leader. He's authentic with his messaging, and we may not have necessarily known he would be recruiting players for us in free agency, but we did believe that he would share his feelings about what makes baseball teams successful, and that he would be an additive member of our culture as we built our chemistry.
Brody, you guys.
Dellin would heal a little bit later than expected, but you still have thought to sign him.
You know, his health was something that we got comfortable with throughout the process. He did his rehab work here in New York. His medical team was all based in New York, and we're very familiar with them. So we got ourselves comfortable with where he was at, and we're looking forward to having him go to spring training.
You guys are now projected to have the highest bullpen WAR in the NL going into next season. Did you feel like you were one bullpen piece away from being a big, legitimate World Series contender?
Well, we knew that we had potential in our bullpen, even with the existing guys that we had. By adding 2 starters to the rotation, we knew that Lugo and Gesellman would have the opportunity to remain in the pen, and that if we had an opportunity to go sign another elite level pitcher, then the ceiling could just be raised. But we're excited about what the potential is, and now it's just a matter of having everybody come together and perform the way they're capable of.
Good guys.